I just got back from New York Comic Con, and it's time to talk about how my experience went and, of course, what I brought back home with me. Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks. This is take two, by the way. The first take was like 40 minutes long. I have no idea how long this recap is about to be, but I wanted to talk to you guys about my time at New York Comic Con 2024. This was my first time ever going to New York Comic Con, and it was definitely my first time going as press, and it was it was very fun going to New York Comic Con. But let's just talk about how things went. So I went to New York Comic Con. You know, New York Comic Con runs 4 days, usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This year they allowed the retailers and stuff to set up on Wednesday. So some people could have actually gotten in on Wednesday, like press people and stuff like that. And then there's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and of course, Sunday. I I didn't decide. I was gifted my flight to New York Comic Con by my brother way last year on Christmas. And so from the time I learned I was going to New York Comic Con, I was always locked into this schedule. So I flew out of Raleigh on Thursday afternoon. I think my flight left at noon and I landed sometime after just before 2 o'clock in New York. Flew into LaGuardia, and from there it was on. I took an Uber to Midtown Manhattan, and that Uber took me an hour to get to Manhattan on Thursday afternoon from the airport, which is crazy because it only took like 20 minutes to get back to the airport on Sunday. But it took me an hour and it cost me $100. Like, I was not expecting that high of an Uber bill. But anyway, I got there Thursday and I already had my game plan. My plan was, let me go and walk the convention floor on Thursday just to kind of see where everything is, because the Javits Center is huge. It's got like 4 different levels and it's really not laid out in a way that's conducive to the way I would typically handle a con. Typically, like, I'm used to like Heroes Con, where the artist alley is on the bottom floor of the convention, and then you might go upstairs to see like panels and stuff. And the Javits is laid out that way, but the bottom floor is nowhere near the size of the convention floor at Heroes. It's smaller. So the artist alley is smaller than the Heroes Con artist alley, but there's way more people, like, because every comic creator you can think of, chances are they are at New York Comic Con. If they're not at a table in Artist Alley, they're there as a featured guest and they're on panels and stuff like that. So it was just a lot of people. But anyway, I wanted to go get the lay of the land. And so I walk in Thursday, make sure my press credentials work and all that. And I just kind of take it all in. Like, I'm looking around. The first thing that greets me is this huge, Macy's Day Parade size Goku balloon. And I'm at the Toei Animation booth and I'm looking at One Piece stuff and Dragon Ball Z figures, and I get handed like a cool little Dragon Ball Super comic, but it's like blown up. So it was already cool. But the first thing that really like captivates me is just how big the convention is. There's like an exhibitors area. So like people selling comics and stuff. There were some indie creators that were up on that main floor instead of Artist Alley. So that was cool. I saw my man Greg Burnham. I saw Javon Stokes. I did not get to stop and speak to Marcus Williams, but he was there as well. And, the list goes on. As a matter of fact, the first person I saw when I walked in to the comic convention that I already knew was Omari Malik from Blacktooth Publishing. He was there as well. So it was cool. You walk in and see your people, and it's definitely all smiles from there. But I'm kind of just taking in the scenery. recognizing just how big the main floor of the convention is. And I'm seeing like all these activations. There's the Nickelodeon world, and there's like the Dog Man stuff, and just everything is just big, and there's so much of it. So there's that. I see the Ghost Machine booth and how Midtown Comics is kind of partnered with them to sell the wares of all the Ghost Machine creators. I got to see the homies from Comics on Coffee. So lots of cool stuff on the show floor. I go down to the artist alley and I do the same thing. So I'm running into all these different creators that I know. I think the first person I ran into was my guy, Chris Robinson, from Werewolf Frankenstein, who's been on the show twice. So I can officially say friend of the channel. Shout out to you, Chris, if you're watching. But I saw him, and he was just like, yo, just do your thing. Like, introduce yourself to people, like say hello, whatever. Shout out to Ariel Cologne. Saw him as well. But so I'm walking around. I'm just taking in just all the scenery, seeing the Tiny Onion booth and all the things, all the things. So I kind of I get the lay of the land. I'm thinking it's going to take me like 30 minutes to an hour to walk and just see where everything is. I was there for like 3 hours on Thursday, and that was crazy. But Thursday was always meant to be a family day because I actually stayed with my uncle who, short sentimental story time. My uncle is the reason that I do anything creative, like that I've ever had any aspiration for a creative career. When I was growing up, he always lived in New York, and he used to work as a marketing rep, for Atlantic Records. And so growing up, I would see him. He would like bring us like CDs and like posters and stuff of all your favorite artists. He worked on campaigns for like Lil' Kim and Junior Mafia. The first time I ever saw a platinum plaque, it was at my grandmother's house with his name on it. And I was always like, I just want to do that for a living. And I kind of followed into his footsteps into the music industry for a little bit before I pivoted into comics with this channel. But all that to say, I wanted to spend some time with my uncle. And so Thursday, after I walked the convention floor, got a lay of the land, we left, we jumped on the train to Harlem, and I got to go and kind of, what I love about New York City is that New York City is like a million different cities all in like one very tight radius. But it's like you can get on that subway and you get off the metro stop, and it's like you're in a different world from the one you just left. It's like jumping in through like a portal on a video game. And so seeing the culture in Harlem, like I got to take a picture of the Apollo, and just we're seeing the different types of people that live in each sort of section. So I went to Harlem Thursday night. Later on, I got to experience Soho, and then I did some more exploration in like Midtown as well. But like growing up, my family's from Queens. And so even the ride from LaGuardia, like you see it and it just looks different from like where you're going. So anyway, I just love that about New York City. But the side note aside, I got to hang out with my uncle on Thursday night, and that was really fun. But I was like, all right, yo, I got to go to bed because Friday is going to be insane. So Friday was always going to be my busy sort of work day at the convention. And it started off with a private event at an Amazon building. I don't know if it's their headquarters or what, but an Amazon building in Midtown Manhattan. I got to go to an event for Comixology. Comixology is sort of a kind of like a State of the Union address. Like the Comixology lead from Amazon kind of told us how things were going, how many new comics are coming out, how their customer base is going, and all that. So it's kind of like the Apple keynote. And then they gave us a presentation of like just all of these Comixology originals, some that are like that were already available on Comixology and they're coming to print soon. And then others were like, hey, we got a bunch of these creators, and they put a huge graphic of all the creators they've got signed into deals. And they're like, we're not going to tell you who's partnering with who, but we got a whole lot of Comixology originals coming in 2025 that you need to know about. So I was very excited about that. Now, this was my first time going to like a comic book industry event that I was invited to as press. And so it was very cool, if not a bit intimidating and overwhelming, to be sitting at the table, like where they're handing out like mimosas. I was just drinking plain orange juice, but they're handing out like drinks and stuff. And I look over and I'm like, oh snap, that's Chip Zdarsky over my shoulder. And then the same when Scott Snyder walks past me. I was a little too starstruck. I didn't speak to anybody, with the exception of Alex Segura, who I'd already been friendly with online, and Jamal Igo, who we have mutual friends, and he just happened to be sitting at my table. So I introduced myself. But it was very cool to be in the room while these new wares are being announced and to, you know, be considered important enough to even be in that room was kind of crazy to me. So shout out to Team Comixology for that. And by the way, I'm very excited about all these Comixology originals coming. They gave us like a deck of cards with a bunch of previous and upcoming Comixology originals. And I gotta say, I didn't realize there were that many of them. Like I thought when the original announcement came out, I think all I ended up hearing about were a few of the Scott Snyder titles. But man, there are a ton of Comixology originals. And so I gotta go back and do my homework and read some of these. So shout out to Comixology for that. So anyway, start the day off at the Comixology event. I told you I was a little bit starstruck. I didn't speak to any comic book creators, but you know who I did speak to? The pals, the comics pals were there at this same event. And so I got to finally meet Sean and Marco and Tyler. I also met my homie from the Bada Boom podcast. Like we met quite a few comic book YouTubers, and somehow we're the ones taking pictures with each other as opposed to like pestering Scott Snyder for an autograph or something. So that was interesting, but it was fun. And so of course I decided to walk back to Javits with the pals. And so we made that walk, which was pretty much a straight shot. So shout out to the Amazon building for being convenient to the Javits Center. So we go to the Javits and, you know, now we're there for day 2 of the convention. And day 2 is always going to be the busiest day for me. Outside of that Comixology event, there was another event I was supposed to go to later that night. We'll talk about that in a second. But, you know, I had a couple of interviews scheduled on the convention floor and I couldn't do them. I couldn't keep the interviews because there were just too many events back to back to back or also running simultaneously. So just to give you an idea, I was supposed to attend the Illuminati panel, which was moderated by Rob Markman, featuring Axel Alonso, Charlemagne the God, and Dennis Cowan. And you guys know how I feel about Dennis Cowan. If not, look at all the Dennis Cowan art on the wall behind me. So I went to that event, and then there was like another private press room for that panel right after. And then at the same time as all that, I was supposed to be conducting 2 interviews on the floor of the convention. But then when I realized how the floor of the convention was laid out, I'm like, there's no way, because even those interviews were back to back and they're like on separate sides of Artist Alley. So it's like how busy it's going to be that Friday. I don't know if I could even make it. And so anyway, I ended up having to cancel those interviews, but you're going to see those creators on the Comics Are Dope podcast in the upcoming weeks. So shout out to IDW Entertainment for that. So anyway, Friday was always going to be busy, but I did get to go to the Illuminati panel, and there, of course, I met Dennis Cowan. And so after I got to meet him, and I got to bring my uncle along because I had an extra Friday pass. And so that was my first sort of taste of, all right, we're at this convention. So shout out to, who was it that I met? Let me look at my messages, because there were several of you guys that came up to me over the course of the weekend. Shout out to Everyday Adams Comics, who bought a piece of original art colored by Noel Giddings of Hardware #1. And I'm mad because anyway, this video is going to be way too long if I keep going into all these stories. So shout out to Everyday Adams Comics for stopping by and saying what's up to me at that panel. But anyway, I did that panel, and then it was like I was supposed to be going to a Scholastic event right after that panel. But I spent a little bit too much time talking to Dennis Cowan and missed my shuttle to the Scholastic office. And so I ended up at a different event, a different after event, with my man Omar from Near Mint Condition. So he's like introduced me to all these different comic book creators and behind the scenes peoples and figureheads and stuff like that. And I got to meet Sean Gordon Murphy, so that was really cool. And Ben McCool and lots of different people that I got to meet. And so it was really awesome, like to just experience the Comic Con experience as like a pro, because there's very much two different cons. There's the con for fans, and then there's the con for the industry. And you gotta be a night owl to do the con for the industry. And that was not me. But anyway, we did that whole after hours event. I got to meet a bunch of people. We had some Italian, well, I had Italian food. Everybody else just kept drinking. But I had a really great plate of cacio e pepe. And then I took 3 trains back from Soho to Midtown so I could go to bed and try to do this all over again for Saturday. So the big win for Friday was finally getting to meet Dennis Cowan, who is one of my heroes in this industry, one of my favorite people, one of the nicest people that I've come across in comics. And let's take a break so I can show you what he gave me. Actually, it's going to take me too long. We'll do the haul at the end. So anyway, that was Friday. Saturday was like, I'm going to go to all the panels that I can go to. So Saturday, I went to the Ghost Machine panel 1 year in. That's where I got this hat. And huge shout out to Kat at Ghost Machine. But honestly, huge shout outs to everybody. After the Ghost Machine panel, which I took plenty of video of, I don't know, maybe I took a bunch of clips. I didn't take like any like actual video. So it probably doesn't make sense to try to make a Ghost Machine video separate. But I did get to do an interview with Jason Fablik after the panel. And that was really cool. And that ended up being the only interview I did on the convention floor. But after that, I did the Ghost Machine panel. I went and did the interview, and then I had to go. I was like trying to get to the Jim Lee and Friends panel. And that was dope. Like going to see the Jim Lee and Friends panel, being in the room when they announced that Vertigo is coming back, being in the room when they announced that, Hush is coming back and Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb are going to be taking over the main Batman title at issue 158, I believe it is. So it's like, that was cool to just sit and see announcements, even though like almost everything had hit Bleeding Cool already, with the exception of the Vertigo news. That was the first time I'd heard Vertigo was coming back. But that was really cool to be in the room during that. And after I left the Jim Lee and Friends panel, I had to go directly to the Skybound panel, which was really cool. I got to be like a guest of Skybound and sit in the press section. And while they're talking about the next year of Energon stuff, like the G.I. Joe book that's coming out next month, teasing some plans for the Transformers and all that. So that was really cool. And I had never seen Robert Kirkman in person before. And that was pretty much my convention. After I left that panel, I did go back down to Artist Alley. And that's where I spent the rest of my time. Like I was just like, for the rest of this day, I'm going to meet as many people as I can meet. And so I met Greg Pak and Ken Lashley. And who else did I meet? I met Nicholas Draper Ivy. Finally, that was one guy I was like, I gotta meet him while I'm in New York, because when else am I gonna meet him? So I met a lot of those guys. I finally met my man Morgan Hampton, who did Cyborg and did the Sons of Star Trek series. So that was really cool. There was a lot of people that I was seeing for like a second or third time, but it's always dope to catch up with my man Anthony Fowler. It's always great seeing Greg Elise. And, you know, it was dope. It was dope. So I'm glad that I saw everyone that I saw. And like I said, man, I don't know, man. As far as summing up the experience, there are a lot of things that I didn't do. There are a lot of people that I didn't see that I thought I was going to have a chance to see just because we'd be in the same place. Like my man Gary Maloney or my man Albert Loves Comics. Like we had a whole conversation before I got to New York, like, oh, let's meet up. And then cell reception was terrible, or like the Twitter DMs didn't go through. And like there were so many things that I was doing that I forgot to even follow up. So there were a lot of people that I didn't meet before this convention and I still have not met. But it's all good. It's all good because with my experience, I'm pretty much content with everything I got to do. But I also took for granted that I would be able to meet different people. Like on my first walkthrough, I saw Jeremy Adams. I saw Chip Zdarsky. I saw who else? David Pepose. I saw all these people and I was like, okay, cool. I'm making a mental note. Like, all right, that's where David is. That's where Jeremy is. Cool. When I come back, I'll say what's up. And then I came back and they weren't at their tables. And maybe they were at panels. Maybe Jeremy Adams was too busy being announced as the Aquaman guy, right? Like, so there's a lot of things that I just assumed I'd be able to do that I wasn't, because it's a busy convention for everybody. So if I got a word of advice to give you, it's plan, 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 and then be ready for your plan to not like really align with everything that's actually happening. Like, be ready to call an audible. But Friday night, oh, excuse me, was that Friday night? No, Saturday night. Saturday night, I went out for ramen with my man TFL, Trevor Fernandez Linkevich. And that was an amazing experience. First of all, I never had ramen at a restaurant before. It was really good, really rich, but really good. And I got to meet my man Jace from the Comic Source and Richard Fairgray, who I had just been hanging out with the night before. And there were two other people at the table with us whose names I cannot remember. So my bad, guys, but had a great time. And then we walked further into Midtown and, you know, did like a little rooftop bar type thing. And they were going to a different after party. And I was like, you know what, man, I got to tap out. I got to fly out tomorrow. I'm going to oversleep if I don't just leave right now. And I should have stayed out with them because they got to link up with Gary Maloney and several other people that I was trying to see. But oh well, man, that's life sometimes. So hopefully while I've been talking, I've been throwing B-roll up because I got plenty of it. But let's look at some of the stuff that I grabbed at New York Comic Con. So we're gonna start out with some convention exclusives. So at the Ghost Machine panel, I did get this ash can for the Family Odysseys universe. So this is it, Rockefellers and the B side, if you will, is Hornsby and Halo, or maybe Hornsby and Halo is the A side. You decide. But so that was really cool. Shout out to Ghost Machine for this. What else did I get? I just happened to run into my man Ron from Alien Books in the Valiant universe on the floor of the con. He was like, hey, BJ. And I'm like, yes, I'm BJ. And he's like, Ron from Alien Books. I'm like, oh, snap. Yes. What's up? Anyway, he gave me some Valiant books. So this is an Eternal Warrior one shot from the Resurgence of the Valiant Universe. And then this is Resurgence of the Valiant Universe issue number 4. So shout out to him for that. Let's put these here. At the Comixology event, they gave us a copy of Parliament of Rooks because it's getting published by Ablaze. It was previously just a Comixology original. So that's pretty cool. A lot of like black, white, and red type stuff going on here. Not a ton of colors in this book, but it looks cool. Next up, from my man Chris Robinson. Again, congrats on the Eisner for All Negro Comics 75. But I got Werewolf Frankenstein. This is the Kickstarter edition. And I'm glad I have it because the version that came to the direct market didn't come to my comic shop and it has a very, very small print run. So I'm glad I have this. I love the paper stock on this edition, by the way. Very, very good stuff. But that's Werewolf Frankenstein, the frightful first issue. What else do I have? Oh, more convention exclusives. So they did announce that Vertigo's coming back at DC Comics. And so this is the Nice House by the Sea, issue number 1, special edition with the DC Vertigo labeling and not the DC Black label. By the way, they're going to do second and third prints for like issues 2, 3, or whatever else is out so that they all match up. But for now, this is the only copy of issue 1 with the Vertigo branding. And it does say New York Comic Con exclusive. So that's dope. And I thought it was supposed to be like just 1 per person, but then I saw the guy in front of me grab like 5. And so I grabbed an extra 1 because I won't be left out. So anyway, don't know what I'm going to do with these. I don't read horror. And so I was just excited to have something I could only get at New York Comic Con. So cool stuff, but I'm probably not going to be reading this book. But that's that. And the last convention exclusive I got was this. This is the G.I. Joe unlettered preview from Skybound. The art in this is by Tom Riley, of course, and it is beautiful. Colors by Jordi Belair. The light in front of me is way too bright for you to actually see what's going on. But opening scenes of G.I. Joe. Maybe I should turn this light down. So there we go. Not much better, but the point is, cool stuff happening. No word balloons, so it's all out of context. So I guess I should stop doing this because I'll be spoiling art. But you can see character designs, some extras. So that was really dope. Huge shout out to Team Skybound for inviting me to that panel and allowing me to get the convention exclusive. So that's that. Gotta give a huge shout out to Comics on Coffee. They kept me caffeinated the entire New York Comic Con. They were like, yo, just stop by the booth. We got you covered. So shout out to Jason and Laura for helping me out. I did grab this. This is the Metropolis Mocha is the name of this flavor. It's like a vanilla mocha type thing. I had some just before I filmed this video. It's pretty good. I think I like the Blue Beetle a little bit better, but this was good. I didn't have any problems with this. So shout out to them. It's my next month's supply of coffee. All right, so I guess that's all the convention stuff that I got. Oh, by the way, I did get this hat from the Ghost Machine panel. Shout out to Ghost Machine for giving me the hat. Thanks. Now, I did bring some stuff with me that I wanted to get signed. The only person I brought anything for was, well, that's not true, but I mostly brought stuff for Dennis Cowan to sign because Dennis Cowan wasn't even a featured guest at the con. Like, he was there for that one panel. He didn't have a table or anything. So I was like, okay, my only chance to meet Dennis is at this panel and at the private like press event right after. And so can't even lie, it was worth missing the Scholastic event to have some FaceTime with Dennis Cowan. And man, was it great. So I got a bunch of stuff signed. First up, I got the first issues of each of the original 4 milestone titles. So Dennis signed my Hardware #1 right there on Hardware's armor. He also signed my Blood Syndicate #1 right here on Holocaust's arm. He also signed my Static #1 right here in this corner. On the other corner is Jimmy Palmiotti, who also signed each of these issues at Heroes Con for me last year. And then I've got, he signed my Icon #1 right there. So, yeah, I got my Dennis Cowan signatures on each of my original 4 milestone books. And honestly, these are all in really good condition, with the exception of Static, which could use a press. I think I might get these graded. I don't do graded comics, but these are special to me. The only thing that would have made them better is if they were personalized to me. But it was a very quick interaction. Dennis was trying to get some food, and I was not trying to come between that man and his dinner plate. So I'm just grateful that he did that for me. And then I also got a couple posters signed. So this poster, this is the one, if you ever watched that Milestone Generations documentary, this is the poster that Bill Sienkiewicz drew that they thought was going to bring like a bunch of like new readers to Milestone, and basically didn't. But that's the whole poster. But it's actually signed. Dennis signed it right here at the bottom. So excited about that. Posters are so cumbersome, but it folded up nicely. But anyway, so I got that poster signed, but some other stuff signed. So a couple magazines. This is Comic Book Collector issue #7. It's a fairly rare appearance of Hardware. It's not the earliest, but it is an early appearance. So I got that signed right there. This is probably the most rare thing I got signed. This is Superman Batman Magazine #7. Inside this is a Milestone for Kids insert. And I had a decision to make. Like, did I want Dennis to sign right here on the cover of that insert? Or did I want him to sign this sort of centerfold poster. And so I got him to sign the centerfold poster. Right here at the bottom is Dennis Cowan's signature on what may be the rarest Dennis Cowan poster out there. Who knows? I don't know. So I got that. And I did get one more poster signed. And this was the one. This is like the holy grail for me. This is the earliest milestone poster. And it's just a promo. You've got like all the main characters. And it says milestone 2/27/93, which I believe is the date that Hardware #1 came out. It says if you're not there, you just won't get it. And of course, Dennis signed mine right there in the corner. So, man, meeting Dennis Cowan was everything that I hoped it would be. And all I got is gratitude. So that was like the icing on top of my convention experience. I will say, like, doing this whole thing, there's doing the convention as a fan and there's doing the convention as press. And I probably was a little bit self-serving in that I wanted to experience as much as I could as a fan. And that's why I ended up canceling those interviews I was supposed to do on the convention floor. Because I'm like, if this is the last hurrah before Baby Kicks gets here next year, then I want to say I enjoyed myself. I don't want to be like, oh, my feet hurt and all I got was some content for the channel. Like, I love y'all, but I love comics. And that's why I wanted to go to New York Comic Con. So I did choose me ultimately. But because of my experience, I know this won't be my last New York Comic Con. And I know this won't be my last chance to interview a bunch of people on the floor at New York Comic Con. By the way, I did get this shirt from the folks at Vault Comics, from a comic called Dying Inside, which I believe is written by like some musician. I feel like I spotlighted this in the On the Radar section of the pull list at one point. And is there anything else? Oh, got this Illuminati print. It's not signed or anything, but I got it. And ironically, the convention program I didn't see until I was leaving the convention Saturday evening. But this would have been helpful to like be like, oh snap, like here's where everything is. Here's the room. Here are all the rooms. Here's where I should go. And I never made it to any of those like anime or movie panels. They weren't like on my priority list at all, but I didn't. So anyway, that was my New York Comic Con experience. Shout out to the new IDW logo, by the way. I hated it when I saw it in the press release, but it looks better the more I see it. And it especially looks good on the hats they gave out. And I didn't get one of the IDW hats because I wasn't at the IDW panel. But shout out to the next 25 years of IDW. And with that, that was my New York Comic Con experience. I hope I gave you all the B-roll you wanted. I wanted to make this like super cinematic and like a vlog for real. But I had two choices. I could make a really cinematic, awesome video, or I could publish something. And so, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys in another one soon. Until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.